Right, Matthew?
That works for you.
By the way, welcome everybody. Did I say that already? Welcome, 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 welcome. And to you out on the internet, welcome to you. Glad that you're here. We are live on 5 different platforms, YouTube and Facebook, and so hopefully we might even get on some more after we get to the move. This is our last service here in the fellowship hall. Downstairs in the basement, we're going to be moved over to 5th and Virginia, right on the corner, and we'll be starting there on September the 9th. We will not have a meeting next week. And so anyway, that's what's going on for you that's out there. We'll have some signage here and we'll have some signage over there to try to help people find us if they're looking for us. And if they're not looking for us, maybe they'll see the signs anyway, right? Yes, Doug, that's right. And so anyway, and then on the 23rd, we'll be where we will also not have service. And on that 23rd, Steve Metzger will be having a memorial service at 6 o'clock at Del Bayless's church, which is, what did I say it was? Central Cox, right? Central Street and Cox Street, right on the corner, kind of a bluish church. I looked it up on maps, and I tried to read the sign out front of it, and I couldn't tell what the sign said. And I meant to go by there. I didn't do it to figure that out. So anyway, that's going on. And also just came from the service for Tim O'Neill over at the Road Church, and it was quite a gathering over there. I had to leave early because, in fact, it probably hasn't stopped yet because they scheduled 2 hours, and they got started a little late, and they hadn't gotten very far yet. But there was some good things said, and Tim was a good guy, and we're going to miss him. And of course, everybody loved April and Tim. So, all right. So tonight we're on step 8, and this will be our last one in this month. And that is, we made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing, which is the key word, to make amends to them all. Again, we've said this. Step 8 is not about making the amends. Step 8 is about preparing ourselves, our willingness to be able to begin to move that direction. Thank God for process. God is a process God. He understands that it requires some process. A lot of us, that includes me, are slow learners. Anybody slow learner around here?
Oh, yeah.
If you didn't raise your hand, you're a liar. So, and most of you are liars. So, anyway. Yeah. So, anyway, so tonight we're going to be talking about reaping goodness out of Galatians 6, verse 7 through 10. And that's an interesting statement, reaping goodness. I wonder what that means. Anybody have an idea what that means? Step person, do you know what that means?
I do, but let somebody else answer.
Okay. Anybody have a, yes, Matthew.
If we have to reap what we sow, what if we hadn't had any good things? We won't get nothing.
Well, you're right on target there, Matthew. So we want to plant some good stuff so we get some good stuff, right? That's the principle. What about all the bad stuff we planted?
Got to reap that.
Oh, yeah. So, but eventually that will phase out. So they say.
Attitude changer.
John, did you have your hand up?
Isn't that sort of like reaping our blessings?
Say it again.
Isn't that sort of like reaping our blessings?
Well, you would be, yes, reaping goodness, which would be reaping a blessing. But this reaping here is really goes to kind of what Matthew was talking about, is that whatever we plant's going to grow. And
But that growth in itself is a blessing.
say it again.
That growth itself is a blessing.
Yep.
Because there are so many things that can go wrong that will cause our seed not to grow. There are so many doubts that come in our mind that will cause the ground, though it is fertile, to become infertile.
That's true. But we thank God for His grace and His mercy and His love and His protection, because He's there to help us to work through all that other stuff.
Yeah, we have to consider ourselves worthy of His help to receive that help. Correct?
Well, I don't like the word worthy, because I don't think that's gonna. I don't think we can. If that's kind of grandiose thinking. The thinking that we're worthy, but we have to be willing to receive. We go back to step 8 here, talking about willing to make amends. We have to be willing to receive His grace, and it's not based on our worthiness, but it's based on our right standing with Him, because He makes us right standing, just as we've never seen.
Based on our humility.
You bet. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I'm going to be talking about 7 consequences of addictive behavior. I'm just going to touch it real quick, and I'm going to go into it a lot. But as I was studying this, that came up on my radar, and I thought, well, I'll just touch it real quick. How about that?
Who's the liar
The real
now?
quick
Just gonna
part.
touch it real quick.
I'm doing what Matthew said. I'm cutting it off at the beginning. So is the band ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have the band, and then we'll have the reading of the will, and then,
But I will be done.
yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, gosh.
I'm already having fun. All right. Here we go. Sorry about that. 2, 3.
Ready. Go.
Thanks, John.
Come up here, John. I promised Matthew that when, oh, maybe I should have said Matthew. Did I say your name, Matthew? Anyway, we wanted to get a 9-month bracelet, and so, anyway, we want to give him that bracelet, and I'm trying to figure out what color that is, and that's yellow, John. So, we want to give him a yellow bracelet, so won't we give Matthew a big hand? How about that? Congratulations. I plan on giving you a gold one of these days. How about that? That's for 10 years or more. How about that? Sound good?
Yep.
All right. So now we're going to have the 12 steps. John's going to read.
We admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 1. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Step 7, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. I find in step 8, the one that's hardest to make amends to is myself. Step 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Thank you very much.
Is that me?
It's Vanessa. I'm ready for you.
I'm nervous because, it's been like 6 years since I've been up here. Outside of music, anyway. Okay. First time doing this way, so if I mess up, correct me later, not on camera, okay? Okay, thank you. So step 8, reaping goodness. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make an amends to them all. While in recovery, we learn to accept responsibility for our actions, even when we are powerless over our addiction. We come to realize that all our actions yield consequences. Some of us may have fooled ourselves into thinking we could escape the consequences of the things we did, but with time, it's become clear that God has made accountability a necessary element of healthy living.
Do you want me to interrupt you when we're done or while we're going through it?
Whenever you want to.
Okay, well, let's back up a little bit,
Okay,
because I was pondering whether I should interrupt you.
interrupt me.
Interrupt you, okay. Well, let's back up to, let's start from the beginning again. You were going kind of fast.
I was.
Yeah,
So I was trying to get to the scripture.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the scripture, so.
Okay.
Go ahead and read the first line again, first sentence.
While in recovery, we learn to accept responsibility for our actions.
Stop.
Okay.
So what does that mean?
We learn to accept responsibility
Wait, you skipped something.
while in recovery.
Yes.
So outside of recovery, we don't really learn to accept our responsibility because we're still blaming, right?
Good. We're recovery is learning to accept our responsibilities. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah.
So outside of recovery, we don't accept responsibility. Normally, we don't accept responsibility for anything. Would you all agree with that?
Yeah.
All right. So let's read that again from that knowledge base.
While in recovery, we learn to accept responsibility for our actions. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Even when we are powerless over our addiction.
Now, what do you think about that second part that we just now read?
When we're powerless over our addiction,
Mm-hmm.
or even when
Even when,
that,
because that's an acknowledgement that we are powerless. And before we're in recovery,
Mhm.
We don't acknowledge that fact.
Right.
Is that true?
Mhm.
So now we're acknowledging that we're powerless. So we're taking responsibility when we are feeling out of power, no power. We're powerless. And still, we're taking responsibility, right, for our actions. And when we take responsibility for our actions, when we are powerless over our addiction, what does that mean?
Before sobriety happens.
Well,
For me, well, that's what I keep thinking about
the first three words.
while in recovery.
We have moved into recovery. When we decided that we're going to go ahead and take responsibility for our actions, even though I feel so powerless. What do you think about that?
It's mind-boggling.
Thank you for the honesty. But isn't that means you have been rushed upon with some new thoughts.
Mhm.
And that means you're a little more confused, which most times we think that's bad, but I say that's good.
Mhm.
Because you got new thoughts, it's challenging those old thoughts.
But what's going through my head is like, even when we're powerless to addiction, is like whenever I was drinking, I had to be willing to come to realize that, oh my gosh, I am making a mess. Did I get sober that day? No.
No, but that was probably the beginning of your recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So being sober is not recovery,
right,
right?
right. And that's, I think, what was trying to differentiate my mind.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people think that sobriety is recovery, but that's not true,
Mhm.
right?
That's right. You can be a dry drunk.
Right. And so we're talking about recovery, okay? So we're looking for signs and symptoms of recovery here.
Is that a question?
More of a statement.
Okay.
All right. Next sentence.
I gotta find where I left off. We come to realize that all our actions yield consequences.
All right, let's say, what does that mean?
Is that for me only?
Whether good or bad, all of our things have consequences.
Mhm.
Well, we're primarily in this sentence, which is true, John, you're talking about, but in this sentence, it's talking about our addictions.
I understand.
For me, it meant bankruptcy
Okay.
and losing everything.
Yes. And is that it? Is that the only consequence?
Losing sanity.
Sanity, losing your sanity.
Or just recognizing you've lost your sanity?
Yeah, yeah.
Losing that warm, fuzzy feeling inside you get whenever you do something good.
So being emotionally apathetic,
And
like that was, yeah,
Or non-emotional, period?
yeah,
Totally numb.
yeah.
Vacant of feeling. So, realizing that there's consequences. Again, then could this be a symptom of recovery?
Realizing that all our actions yield a consequence, yeah.
All right.
Realizing it,
Yeah!
maybe not
Man!
wanting to go through it. I guess we're talking about willingness, so
Yeah.
never mind.
Yeah. Okay, next sentence.
Some of us may have fooled ourselves into thinking we could escape the consequences of the things that we did.
All right. Any thoughts?
I was that.
Do I?
I was that.
You were that.
You come to realize that, like, just because you admit you're powerless and you realize that there's a higher power greater than yourself that can restore you back to sanity, doesn't mean you're going to become sane that day and that everything is going to be fine that day. It will. I mean, everything will be fine, but not everything. You're not going to get everything back that day.
Because there's consequences.
Right.
All right, we're getting closer to that scripture that you want.
Okay.
So that there are consequences, and recognizing that there's consequences and that doesn't mean that you're bad, it just means there's consequences for your behavior. Remember, we talked about behavior here, right?
Mhm.
It's behavior. All right,
Or the high is the lie.
excuse me.
The high is the lie.
The high is the lie. That's good. That's good. You want to expound? No, wait a second. I want him to expound on
Okay.
that.
Well, I think once we get into active addiction, we think that, at the moment, because we're looking for that instant gratification, I think we're looking to escape or whatever our feelings of use is, to go back and use. I think that we think that we can escape that when every choice has a
Now,
consequence.
do you notice the word that you're using? Escaping. Right? And what is the word that we've been using here? About a sign of recovery. Accepting responsibility for our behavior and or our choices. Do you see the difference? The polar difference here. Right? What do you think about that? Teacher, what do you think about that?
I think that you're spot on. Escape is opposite of accepting. Because if we're not trying to escape anymore, we're accepting.
Bingo.
That's a little bit more layman's term.
All right. Okay, so read that sentence again and then maybe we'll move forward. Because I got question marks on both ends of that sentence.
Okay, some of us may have fooled ourselves into thinking we could escape the consequences of the things we did.
Anybody got any comments about that? Tommy?
Consequences of the things we did.
Yeah. Believing that we could escape the consequences of things we've done or did.
Just want it over with. Just want to move past it.
And pretend that it never happened.
No, just work through it maybe, but hopefully it goes away faster than the consequences, the bad consequences.
Okay, may I ask you a question there?
Yes.
How'd that work out for you?
I haven't worked through it.
There you go. And that means what? Working through it.
Good steps, good work.
Yeah, well,
Learning.
let's keep it in context of what we've already talked about.
Oh, accepting. Yeah, I have this every time.
Okay, fine, let's go to the next sentence.
But with time, it has become clear that God has made accountability a necessary element of healthy living.
Healthy living. So what would be one of the key words in that sentence?
Accountability.
Accountability. Okay.
It's a
And if there was a secondary dual words, what would be in that sentence? Healthy living.
Okay, I was gonna say that, but you said dual.
Dual, what that means.
Oh, together. Never mind. Not polar.
You're not polar, but dual. And so accountability. If we're accountable, then it links up with.
Healthy living.
Yeah, all right, yes. See, I like to have multiple voices going on here because that's the way things are in my head.
Okay. I won't comment.
You don't? Anybody else got a comment? About subject material? Go ahead to the next sentence.
The whole scripture? Oh, yeah, okay. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit.
Galatians 6.
7 through 8.
Right. So, what the scriptures here saying that if we harvest, if we're living in the sinful nature or the lower nature, then we're going to harvest decay and death. right?
Yeah.
We all got that, right?
Yeah.
Is there any other alternative to that?
Sowing good.
Well, I mean, no, is there any other, is there anything else that you can get out of living in the sinful nature other than harvesting decay and death?
No.
I just was checking. And then the rest of that sentence is about choosing to live in the Spirit. What does that mean, living in the Spirit?
To live in the Spirit is like, once the Holy Spirit lives inside you, like listening to it instead of your like knee-jerk reaction or your animalistic instinct. And even if that means like putting that on pause for a minute to feel your gut. To me, it's my gut. I might be wrong, but
Well, it's that higher nature, the voice of God, it's truth, all those things, and to respond to what you're talking about, your gut. God speaks to us in multiple different ways, and sometimes we're all a little different. Okay, and not saying that he's limited to what you're most accustomed to, but he can. But we kind of establish a communication system through one of our through one of our systems of way of communicating, whether it's through our gut or through our spirit, or sometimes some people only can receive information from God through dreams. It's what you're able to connect with, but it's God when it happens, right?
and that's really hard to explain.
That is, and that's the reason why I'm saying just because the way I do it doesn't mean the way that you do it.
Right.
And that's because God is going to connect with us in whatever we're open to. Okay, and there's multiple channels, right? I mean, multiple channels, and he uses them all, even though we may only use one of them, or we may use more than one. But anyway, I got sidetracked there a little bit. But if we stay in the realm of the Spirit or in that God type life nature, then we'll harvest everlasting life from that Spirit. That Spirit is that upper nature, that higher nature, that God-like nature, that nature that does good all the time, and it is good all the time. You can go from there.
Which that's hard to identify too, especially if all you've known is dark,
Well, now,
until you learn something new.
well, I know what you're saying, but you have some partial truth there, but the reality is all of us have had those divine moments, those times that God reached into our darkness and did something that we can't explain. We know it, we feel it, we recognize it. We don't want to believe it, but we can't discount it. That had to be God. And when we're in our darkest hour, if we can go back and get those experiences, pull them up, because we remember them less, okay? Because we're drawn to all the negative, because we're wired to seek out the threats in life. So we're more sensitive to threats than we are the good things. So we have to make a practice of pulling out those good experiences and say, if there's one thing I know, this was a God event in my life. And nobody else can tell me any different, because we know that. I may not deserve it, but it happened. And oftentimes they happen at some of our deepest, darkest moments. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And we can say, with knowing in our heart that we may not be able to measure it as in science, but we know it to be true because it's our personal experience with God. And when you got that, that could pull you through.
Okay.
What do you think about that? So, yes, we may have a bunch of crappy experiences, all right? And we'll think about those crappy experiences a lot because that's the way we are, because it's spot danger, okay? Spot the threat, so we focus on that. Our amygdala is wired to that, but if we will choose to give us some emotional, spiritual resiliency by expanding those moments that we have, that I know it happened, and I'd like to have more of it. And we've all had those.
Can we keep reading?
You may.
The law of sowing and reaping can also work for us. God spoke through the prophet Hosea, "Plant the good seeds of righteousness, and you will harvest a crop of love. Plow up the hard ground of your hearts, for now is the time to seek the Lord, that he may come and shower righteousness upon you." Can we keep going?
You have any comment on that?
No. Not right now.
Okay.
Okay. God says we always reap what we have sown, even after we have been forgiven. We must deal with the consequences of our actions. It may take time to finish harvesting the negative consequences from our past, but we don't have to let this discourage us. Making our list of those we have harmed is a step towards planting good seeds.
Good.
In time, we will see a good crop begin to grow.
Yes.
I do have a comment.
Go, maybe.
Okay. I was thinking about this. I'm like, make sure that you don't just make this a check mark list. Because if it's just a check mark list, it's not going to penetrate and get in that hard ground. You're not going to plow anything up. You're just going to walk over it.
Good.
You're going to put seeds on it, and birds are going to come down and eat it up, or the thorns are going to choke them out. I don't know what scripture that is, but it's the parable of the sower.
Yes.
You have to get that plow out, and it is going to suck. It's going to hurt. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, I have written down a comment here. I can make it if you want me to. And I likened it to, I moved out on this property about 17, 18, 19 years ago. And when I first started mowing it, there were rocks, boulders all over this place because it was, those folks had built a house there a few years before, so it wasn't too old of a place. But they really didn't take care of the yard. I mean, they didn't even mow all of it. And so I started I started trying to mow it. But guess what happened when I started trying to mow this yard?
How many blades to go?
Yeah, blades and the collars that hold those things. And I was fixing them constantly. I mean, every time I mowed, I learned, I'm a slow learner. I learned that I needed to be picking those things up. And so I started picking them up. And it's kind of like dealing with these consequences. Some people would say, well, don't deal with the consequences, just leave them alone, they'll be okay. But they're not going to be okay. They're going to cost you something. You're going to hit the boulder some more, and you're going to tear up more, and you're going to spend more time fixing than you are mowing. At least that was some of my experience.
Yeah.
And it took me like 12 hours to mow this place in the beginning. And it took me longer than that to fix this mower, okay, besides what it cost. And so my thoughts here is it's like picking up rocks up out of the yard so that you don't tear your mower up anymore. Yes, there's going to be more rocks. I'm still picking up rocks.
It's Missouri.
Yeah, I'm still picking up rocks, but the rocks are getting smaller, okay? And, but things are getting, keyword here, are getting better.
Yes.
But if I had to deal with the consequences of my stuff. Do you get the parallel?
Yes.
Do you get the correlation? Okay.
I was just thinking that, like, my first thought was, oh, just bring a dumpster or a dump truck full of dirt. Well, the dirt has to settle and the rocks will reappear.
I did that too.
They come back.
I think they put them up from China.
Yeah, but, you know, but I've done, it helped, but they still show up, and every time I walk through the yard, I'm looking for stuff to pick up.
Well, the dirt, adding dirt to the rocky yard could be our, the substance, or it could be avoidance, not making an amends and,
How we cover up the problem.
yeah, covering up the problem. Anyway,
Well, as one guy told me that fixes up rocks, fixes up yards, he told me, he said, these people wanted all the rocks out of their yard. He says, I'll never get all the rocks out of the yard, because when you take all the rocks out, there's no yard left. So somewhere you have to decide it's enough. Okay, it's where it needs to be, and then if we continue to I think maybe put some soil in, cover up, but then stay diligent for those things that start sticking their heads up and dealing with them. That's my lesson from boulders in the yard.
That kind of gets into a further step. Continue to take personal.
Yeah.
When you get that managed level, then you gotta keep.
Got to keep after it.
are we moving on?
Yeah, we're moving on.
Okay,
Did
I
you
don't
have something
know
else?
no, I don't know who's doing the reflection.
You don't?
Nope.
Willie wants to be first.
Reaping good news. Did sound right. Question number 1, what crops did I sow while practicing my addiction? Hope, negativity, deception, all bad on that. Your addiction's there to come and take it away from you. So that's what I put down there. Now, question 2, kind of tricky the way they word it. I'm hoping I did the right way here. Describe the correlation between healthy living and the acceptance of the consequences for my addiction behavior. Both of them are the same, right?
The first part of that. Correlation between healthy living and acceptance.
Exception, it's the same thing, ain't it?
It is, there is a correlation between those two, yes. Did I not answer your question? Or do you have another question?
I don't think the correlations are the same.
I think they are.
Then I'm not understanding what correlation means, so I can't.
It's the similarities, how they're correlated, how they're
Okay.
alike. How's healthy living like taking responsibility for your, how's healthy living and accepting the consequences the same. Let me ask it this way. Is it healthy living to accept your consequences?
Yes.
So
So that it's the same thing, so,
I reversed the
Right.
order for you to hopefully help. So it's help, and that's what we've been talking about all night, is
Right.
taking responsibility.
so accepting that you are living healthy.
So describe the correlation between healthy living and accepting the consequences.
That would be reaping goodness then.
Okay, that's right.
That would be the correlation.
Right. Because what happens if you don't accept your consequences?
Well, then you're gonna go back to your addiction
Yeah,
if you don't accept it.
right. And like pretending those boulders are not out there in my yard,
Right.
I'm gonna break some more.
Right.
What those columns called? Are they called
Towers.
towers? That's it. Yeah. So I break more towers and blades and who knows what else,
You're right.
right? So how's that?
That works, because I didn't understand question 2 and I was trying and the best I could tell, it was the same thing, but now I see where it comes in.
All right,
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Tommy.
Tommy.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Tommy.
Reaping goodness. What crop did I sow while practicing my addiction? There are a lot. I had fear, lies, deception, mistrust, hate, anger. It was scary. Addiction was a very scary place.
Expound on that, what you mean by a scary place.
Because there wasn't much, didn't seem like there was much good there.
Okay, so addiction was to escape the fear, but that same addiction
Also
caused
added
the
to it.
fear.
Also added to it greatly, yes. It didn't fix none of it.
Okay, that's an interesting statement, don't you think?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Um,
Don had something you want to say?
I think while we are in our addiction, we believe that it is helpful. But it is when we step outside of our addiction and we start recovery, we start to get a clear head, that we realize that it wasn't fixing anything. Fixing anything.
It's true.
So if we go by what John just said, then your addiction wasn't scary.
While you were in it, it wasn't.
Oh, yes, it was.
But when
Well, he says it wasn't scary when you were in it, and you're saying it is scary when you're in it.
Yeah. Wait, I'm confused here.
What? You never
Well,
mind.
that's the way it sounded to me, when we're in our addiction,
Oh, yeah.
we're comfortable with it. But it's when we step outside of our addiction, we look back and it's scary. It scares us that we got off track.
Oh,
as a
yeah.
kid.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that.
So Brandon, what's your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of people, it is scary while they're in it, but I think that's a lot, I was kind of thought on the comment that came to me, I think that's why people stay there. Because they know it's scary, I know what it brought me, but why do I go back? Why do I go back? I'm still kind of thinking, but
Speculate.
there's issues.
Speculate why.
Look here,
Because it's a known, comfortable.
Yeah.
Scary as opposed to the unknown scary of the other.
It's true.
So now we had some different opinions on the same thing. And can both of them be true? Be careful.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
Depends on your mind.
Now, some people say, no, it can't.
Depends on your mindset.
Okay. But it really depends kind of where you're at in your situation, right? And maybe it was scary to you and you wasn't even aware of it. You were more self-deluded. Who knows? I'm just saying, think about it.
That is in the mind.
Go ahead.
Gonna move on?
You may.
All right. I also had a tough time with this question. Describe the correlation between healthy living and acceptance of the consequences for my addiction behavior. I didn't understand what it was saying, and I kind of did, because I thought correlation means something similar or parallel or two things, but I couldn't figure out what it was meaning when the difference between healthy living and acceptance of my consequences. I didn't understand what that was asking me. Parallel a negative and a positive thing together.
I think if you break the word apart, core relationship, what's the core relationship?
That's another way.
That's good. That's good, John.
That's another one. Now my brain
And
is
see,
still-
you were saying it's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not about the difference. It's the similarity, the core relationship, like John just said.
So my answer I put was helps me learn my addictive behaviors when they come up in life so I can live healthy.
And because we see accepting the consequences as a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's trying to help us see, no, that's a sign of recovery. That's
Growth,
healthy living. That's, remember I said, we're looking for symptoms or signs of recovery.
Yes. That's one of them right there.
But see, our mind is so set on the negative. Oh, we see, well, it has, they can't be the same. Well, wait a minute, maybe it is. Because maybe it is.
Makes sense.
Because it is.
It's a good thing. It had me thinking for a while, but
Well, that's a good thing.
So the part that I read earlier is it says accountability, God made accountability a necessary element of healthy living.
Yes,
You can't have healthy living without accountability.
absolutely.
it's true.
Thank you. I think I covered that point, but I don't know that everybody grabbed that point when we went through it. But evidently somehow it resonated in there. So thank you for bringing that back up.
Doug?
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Is it okay that we have this little chat discussion like we're doing? Does that help?
I like it.
You like it? Does it help you grasp things?
Yes.
Yes, no? I can be quiet. Maybe. I can, I've done it before. But I want to read something that I wrote down about, well, this is the question off the internet. What is the correlation between addiction and habit? And I thought that was interesting. Are you interested in knowing that?
Yes.
And that is, if you can control yourself, it is a habit. Habit is not a bad thing. Habit is that you're something that you do without thinking about it. Okay? If you can, now remember what it says, if you can control yourself, it is a habit. But if you see that your habit controls you, then it's an addiction.
So a habit can become an addiction.
Well, all addictions are habits that control you. Do I? What I just said, or to read the definition that they say? If you can control yourself, it is a habit. God has made us a part of our brain to operate off of habits, systems, so we don't have to think about it. It will, and most of our, they say 95% of all of our decisions are made in our unconscious, subconscious, because we have a habit there. It's an automatic system that's working for us. And it says here, if you can control yourself, it is a habit. So if you can regulate that, if you install that, you know it's healthy, okay, and if you can pull it offline if you need to, then it's a habit. But if you see that your habit controls you, then it's addiction. You know, that drive or need is forcing you, you know, it wakes you up early and keeps you up late, you know, and you can't control that, it's controlling you, right? Then it's an addiction. Habits are a result of mental activity. That's what I said a while ago. We've processed it and then moved it from our conscious thoughts into our non-conscious thoughts or subconscious thoughts. But addiction affects mental stability. Affects us from being mentally stable. In fact, these addictions really are a factor of what we call a mental disorder, a disordered thought pattern. Okay, and addictions, adversity affects the power to think, make decisions, and also affects behavior patterns. In other words, it runs you, and it's probably going to run you into negative things. So anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there. 7 consequences of addictive behavior. Here they are. They say that the impact of addiction can be far-reaching. 7 of them. Cardiovascular disease is number 1. Well, let's back up. I want to talk about what is a addictive behavior. Now, we're not even talking about a drug here. We're talking about a behavior, which could be taking substances, or it could be acting out, or it could be a certain way of thinking, or choosing to turn your thinking off and just go emotional. That would be a behavior, wouldn't it? So what are addictive behaviors? So they're saying these 7 consequences are from addictive behaviors. That means it affects our body, okay? You follow me? You follow me? Number 1 is that cardiovascular disease. You know, a lot of that comes from high blood pressure, and that comes from stress and worry and anxiousness and all kinds of other things. Strokes, which is related to some of that. Cancer means stress is breaking down in the different systems of your body. Here's an interesting one. It says HIV or AIDS, which is another immune issue, affecting our immune system. What affects our immune system the most? Stress, right? Okay, the way we think, because what we think causes us to go in emotional behaviors. All right. It says number 5. It says Hep C and Hep B. All right. Number 6 is lung disease, and number 7 is mental disorder. And this is from the NIDA, which is the National Institute of Drug Abuse. So that concludes what we're going to talk about. We're ending about 5 minutes early, so Anyway, we will not be here next week. It'll be, actually, we won't be here in 2 weeks. We'll be in our new place over on Fifth and Virginia, so. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you and give you his peace. And again, make healthy choices. Thanks, everybody.